Today, we're speaking to one of Oceanside Perspective's newest board members, the Dean of the Rady School of Management at UC San Diego, Dean Lisa Ordóñez. Thank you for joining us today.
Of course. Thank you, Nikhil.
So, Dean, prior to your time at UCSD, you spent 25 years at the University of Arizona, but your arrival in San Diego was a little bit of a homecoming. You grew up in the Central Valley, and you spent much of your educational career at UC Berkeley,
Yes.
where you studied not business or management, but you actually studied psychology. Where did that initial interest in psychology come from?
Well, actually, I always thought I was going to be a counselor. And, I have mental health issues in my family, my mother and others, and I always thought that I wanted to be a family counselor. My very first day trying to get into the counseling psychology class that was overfull, I realized there's probably too many counselors. So I quickly backed up and decided that maybe there's other things I can do in psychology, and I ended up taking a class in decision making taught by someone who would eventually get the PhD in economics, Danny Kahneman. And I was fascinated with the topic of decision making. I was fascinated with the class, and I began to do research in that area. So that's how I went on to do research and then get a PhD in psychology.
Got it. And so to you, your work in management was kind of an extension
Absolutely.
Of your interest in psych.
Management is merely the application of psychology in the workplace, especially the type of research that I did, decision making and behavioral ethics.
Got it. And so you went on to do your master's in marketing.
Yes.
What was it about marketing specifically that inspired that decision?
Well, it was really business in particular, because while I loved psychology, I was getting a little tired with these abstract theories without application, and I was desperately looking for a way to apply what I was learning in decision making. And that's where I started with marketing. I fully expected to get a job after my PhD in a marketing department, and really because of networks. I had a professor in the field of management from University of Arizona who encouraged me to apply, and I ended up getting the job there and found that I really enjoyed a broader way to apply what I learned in my research and decision making.
And speaking of your research and decision making, you did your PhD in mathematical psychology.
Yes.
How did you enjoy that experience, and how would you say that shaped the research that you would go on to do?
So mathematical psychology is a very small area of psychology, but it's a very rigorous and very structured part of psychology. So and the way I explain is, instead of theories that are described in box and arrows, I actually had equations. And so, for instance, my dissertation was on an application of Dick Thaler, who also went on to get a Nobel Prize in economics, his research on a theory of consumer choice. I applied that in a marketing context, and I felt it was a great way to combine my interest in a more of a quantitative side of human behavior in an applied way.
Now, earning a doctorate is in and of itself an impressive feat, and you did so actually as a first-generation college student. Could you describe to us that experience, some of the challenges you might have faced, and how perhaps that shapes you as an administrator and as an educator today?
So actually, I have coined a term. I've never heard it before. I call myself a double first generation. My parents did not complete high school. My mother didn't go to high school. And so for them, but at the same time, they were frustrated academics. They wanted to go to college desperately, both of them. And so I heard those stories about how they wished. My dad worked in the family's Mexican restaurant. My mother worked in the fields as a field worker instead of going to high school. And hearing that, I heard that my way out of a pretty tough financial situation was through education. And so for me, I am proud to tell people I'm first generation and double first generation. And I've been able, the exciting part about being a dean and administrator is I get to do some things that I otherwise wouldn't have been able to. So I've started a program called generally we call it the Belonging Initiative, but it's applied to our business econ majors, a mentorship program where it is open to all students who are, diverse, kind of defined broadly. First generation, low income, women, minorities, LGBTQ, military, but a place that says you belong here. And so the exciting thing is I get to support those students who otherwise wouldn't feel that they belong.
Mm-hmm. And what does it mean to you to have that opportunity to be able to, improve a system to help people go through the same challenges that maybe you faced before?
I mean, it's everything. I mean, it's why I get up every day, that I can make an impact that otherwise is just I'm just clocking a time card. Who wants to do that? And we are fortunate, you and I and many people watching this video are fortunate to be able to have choices. My parents did not have choices. Mm-hmm. They did, check in every day just to be able to have enough resources to feed the family. We have a lot more choices than that. And I want to be able to support people to have more choices.
Thank you for that. Now, moving on to your career in academia, your research focused largely on decision-making and a little bit on ethics. Mm-hmm. What was it about these fields that drew your interest and held it for so long?
It was fun. It's interesting to know how people behave, and especially when they behave in ways that you really wouldn't expect. So my dissertation was about consumer choice, and I showed that if you change the mix of really the kind of relationship between price and quality of a product category, and you might be surprised, but you think, higher the price, higher the quality. That is actually not the case in many product categories. Sometimes, in fact, you pay more, you get lower quality, which sounds strange, but does happen. So I got to show how that changes people's ideas about what price to expect and how the decisions they make. And in terms of ethics, I got into it in an interesting way. A colleague of mine that we just enjoyed each other's as colleagues decided to do a project together, and he studied ethics and I studied reference points. And he said, can we find a way to do research together? And pretty quickly we came upon this theory that said goals are like reference points. And what do we know from research, and Danny Kahneman's award-winning research, is that we are more sensitive to losses than to gains. And if you think of a goal as a reference point, not meeting a goal, like in an organization, maybe not meeting your sales goal for the quarter, puts you in the domain of losses. You're riskier. You make riskier choices when you're in the domain of losses. And so we thought, what is a risky thing to do? Cheating to meet that goal. And you're more likely to do it. You're less likely if cheating will help you meet your goal and go a little further. That you're really sensitive to behaviors that would not be condoned by the institution and is destructive to most organizations. So for me, and then I got into other research looking at how can we help that situation by finding ways to encourage a more ethical environment. And most people want to know that their efforts are going to get rewarded. Their positive, ethical efforts, not their unethical behavior.
Now, a large segment of our audience are young entrepreneurs themselves, many of whom are going through the process of building their own organizations and hopefully trying to do it ethically.
Absolutely.
What advice would you have for somebody, especially somebody inexperienced, going about this when they're setting off on this leadership journey of theirs?
Well, in terms of ethics in particular, I get to kind of quote our namesake, Ernest Rady, for the Rady School of Management, who came here as a young man in his early 20s from Canada. And he grew up in, at that time, a smaller city of Winnipeg. And he knew that if he was unethical, that people wouldn't do business with him. And so when he got here to San Diego, a much bigger city, he realized that while he could probably do some underhanded things, he made that choice to always be to do the right thing, to be the honest partner, and it paid off in dividends. People know when you deal with Ernest Rady and his companies that you're going to be treated ethically. And I would say, be that ethical decision maker, that ethical leader, and at the end of the day, you will profit more. Maybe not initially, but in the long run you will, and you will be able to look at yourself in the mirror and know that you did the right thing.
Mm-hmm. And now, talking about business, about entrepreneurship, when you joined the faculty at Rady, coming from the L.I.T.E College of Management at the University of Arizona, you joined a highly innovative, very technical environment with a wealth of technical expertise. What was it like transitioning to and leading such a startup-oriented, innovation-oriented community?
Oh, you said it right, actually. The school itself was acting like a startup. So I came from a very old, 100-year-old plus business school, much larger, and I had to learn what it's like to come to an environment that doesn't have all the things that you were used to, the structure, the policies, procedures, the people who've been doing the job for 20, 30 years. I mean, we're just in our 20th year now, so we didn't have people that had done the job for so long that, we'd figure it all out. We're still figuring it out. So it was a bit daunting, but I was grateful to have the experience as the vice dean from the L.I.T.E College to be able to bring some best practices here. And I feel like it's finally paying dividends. In my 5th year, we have hired an amazing team of leaders, and we're ready to kind of, go to the next stage, which is the growth stage, and growth not only in our students, but also just in our reputation.
Mm-hmm. And so what's on the horizon in this growth stage that you're excited about, at least in the span of the next year?
Well, our big push right now is on getting that external recognition. While rankings are not what some people will think, which is a direct measure of an organization and a program's quality, they are recognized and they are important. And so our big push now is to finally get into that top 50 of U.S. News World Report, to be where we know we belong, but to communicate to the rest of the world that we have arrived and we are part of an even more amazing institution called UC San Diego.
Mm-hmm. And you get the chance to work with a lot of young innovators in your role. What are some of the hurdles that you see them facing nowadays that they're really trying to overcome?
Well, it's hard. It's hard work. And as much as we want the get rich quick, the lose weight fast without trying, it doesn't work that way. And I think it is tough. I think we've done a disservice to our youth by focusing too much on artificially supporting self-esteem by, I hate to say it, sounds kind of hackneyed and corny, participation trophies and you're amazing no matter what you do. Well, you are an amazing person, but research has now shown that self-esteem that is built through achievements is much more longer lasting and predicts future hard work and performance. And so I mainly want to say, hang in there, be smart about it. Sometimes, yeah, you will start things that won't work, but that doesn't mean you can't start something else. So work hard, do what you can, and when that's not working, and you're not a failure, you're just learning. It's not failure, it's feedback.
And in addition to innovation, one of your other big focuses has been EDI, equity, diversity, and inclusion, both at the L.I.T.E College and now at UCSD. Based on your research, how do EDI initiatives, when properly implemented, add to the quality or the productivity of a workplace?
So here's my tagline, is EDI is not only the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do. Organizations that are more diverse are more creative, they're more productive, and they're more profitable. Who doesn't want that? However, you don't get everything for free.
Mm-hmm.
They're also more difficult. You introduce conflict. When not everybody thinks like you and doesn't come with the same cultural experience and the same perspective, you have people who disagree with you, and you have to be okay with that. Myself as a leader, I am trying to teach that psychological safety, that environment that says, I need you sometimes to raise your hand and say, I have a different perspective. Be respectful about it, but I will hear you. Mm-hmm. Because I know if this is just about me, I don't need all these other leaders. I can do everything myself and tell them what to do. I don't want that. I want an environment in where people are coming up with things I couldn't possibly think of, because first of all, we're now training students who are the age of my own children. How am I going to know everything I need to know to be able to meet their needs?
Mm-hmm. And what advice would you have for leaders who are trying to create these environments?
There's a new term I've just learned. It's called reverse mentoring. We talk a lot about mentoring, and I do a lot of it myself to help young people understand, things that they can do to move in organizations. But I can learn just as much from younger people as well. I need to understand what are the needs and the concerns of a younger audience, because if I'm merely implementing things that I needed as a young person, that won't meet the needs of this next generation.
And I'm glad you bring that up. It actually brings me to the next topic. One of Oceanside Perspective's core tenets is sharing perspectives across generations.
Absolutely.
As a leader at Rady, how do you empower teams to communicate and learn from each other and learn intergenerationally?
Well, we do it every day. It's incredible undergrads and even younger master's students who bring their own perspective. The business econ mentoring program, my instructions to the program director is, as we set it up, I said, we've got some ideas of what they need, but don't forget that we need to ask them what they need. They have to co-create this program, because otherwise we're just going to be repeating the type of practices that we've always used, and maybe there's something else they need that we don't know. So it's listening, it's working together and creating programs that meet their needs.
Mm-hmm. And moving on to you as a leader, how would you describe your leadership style?
The crack-up is, I know I'm a leader. I know I'm a leader by title, but titles aren't leaders. People who get things done are leaders. And sometimes it's a bit awkward for me because I don't want to be the person front and center. It's just not who I am. But at the same time, I don't like it when things are broken and no one is stepping up to fix it. So that's when that's how I see myself. I am the person helping us move forward and helping others grow and their ability to do that work. And as I sometimes jokingly say, I really don't do anything in this role. I am helping others do. I'm helping ask questions. I'm helping set standards and a vision. But they're doing the hard work, and I'm trying to facilitate it. So I like to see myself, and I certainly hope that I am that authentic, transparent, and collaborative leader. I keep doing things like 360-degree evaluations to make sure that I'm still being seen that way. But every time I do it, I learn something about myself that I need to take a look at and work on as well.
And now joining the board of directors at Oceanside Perspective, you'll be playing a significant role in helping lead the organization in its future. Why did you decide to make this commitment to OP?
Well, when I first looked at some of the activities, and I thought, this is wonderful. This is kind of what I do as a leader of a business school. But I think the one element that grabbed me was that multi-generational connection, that it's purposeful, that we are connecting through different age groups to support each other. And this idea that younger people can learn from people who've gone before them, and older people like me can learn from younger people with a new vision.
Mm-hmm. And what is your long-term vision for OP? What direction would you like to see it continue to follow or perhaps pivot into in the future?
Well, mostly I look at impact as a person by person, you know, the mentorship programs, the database and the library of great materials. These days, boy, you can learn an awful lot from the internet, and I'd like to be part of that, where you can supplement your education, and you may not be able to afford a very expensive graduate degree, but you can certainly learn, and those people who are active in their educational experience can learn a lot from Oceanside Perspectives.
Now, Oceanside Perspectives' core tenets are summarized by the acronym L.I.T.E, L-I-T-E, Leadership, Innovation, Technology, and Entrepreneurship. Of these, which resonates most strongly with you, and can you give us an example of how it's come up in your life?
Well, I mean, especially given what I do, I would say leadership, because most people, even now, think of a leader as someone who's in charge, someone who's barking orders. And I believe we are now in transition with a large majority of female leaders. We have changed the conversation. It is no longer, I'm the leader, so you do what I say. It's, I'm the leader, and here's where we want to go, and I want you to be so excited that you will follow me. And that's the thing that gets me up every morning, is that I want to lead a great group of people who in many cases are smarter than me. But we're all working together to lead this school in a positive direction.
And do you have any final parting advice for young people, young entrepreneurs who are still trying to make their way through college, to the immediate next steps of college, not just aspiring entrepreneurs, but the young people that you work with every day?
Yeah, well, all I can say is anything worth having is worth working hard for. Don't expect it to be easy, and it will get better. I lived in t-shirts and sweats probably for well more than half my life, and I showed up actually at the University of Arizona with no car because it finally conked just before I got there. No, I didn't even have clothes decent enough to teach in. I had to go shopping before my first class. And you will have those times where you might doubt yourself, you might feel like this is too hard, I'm doing something wrong. No, you're not. And it will pay off. But I would say appreciate each moment. Use those tough times as a comparison. When I was a senior faculty member being flown around the world and put in resort hotels, and people were hanging in my every word for several $1,000s for the day of additional pay, I pinched myself. And I thought, wow, who thought a kid from the Central Valley growing up on a ranch with parents who didn't go to high school could get here?
Sounds good. Thank you very much for that. We've been joined today by the Dean of the Rady School of Management at UC San Diego, Dean Lisa Ordóñez. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.